Yo, what's going on, guys? And my employer, Hoops Hype, posted today our aggregated NBA mock draft. So if you guys don't know, Hoops Hype, I didn't put this together. My coworker put this together. It's Michael Scotto and I believe Albert DeRoa and Frankie Arena, who all three, they do this. And what we do, we take an aggregation of all the mock drafts from all the biggest ESPN, The Athletic, SB Nation, Bleacher Report, all the big guys. And we put them in here and we do it. This is literally just a compilation of what all the other mock drafts have ranked these players. So this is not putting into, we're not putting into like what team is here. This is just numbers. So let's get right into it. Let's hear your guys' thoughts and what's your expectations. So I'm not the biggest Isaiah Collier fan, but the guy's 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan. A lot of mock drafts have him as number one. I've seen on, I think, Draft Express, aka ESPN, The Athletic, they all have Alex Sarr as their number one. But with Isaiah Collier, you're getting, he's the best point guard in this draft class. He's freaking huge. He can run the pick and roll. He drives to the basket, can score on all three levels. And he has, the ability to be a guy who can be a creator for others and himself, score from all three levels and be a decent defender. I'm not really sold on him, but a lot of people like the physical traits and what he's done so far. So he's definitely going to be a lottery pick, top 5 arguably. I'm really big on Alex Sarr. I think his ceiling, obviously, like, I'm not saying that he's going to be Kevin Garnett, but like that type of player arc, his middle tier, like that Kevin Garnett, Jaren Jackson Jr. arc is like the ceiling, and then the floor is probably like a Stromile Swift, if you guys remember him back from the 2000s. And he's just a guy who at 7'1", the things that he can do, put the rock on the floor and really drive and get contact. I mean, he's supposedly going to play out the season, and a lot of that's going to get him some brownie points. But I really like this guy. He's huge. So I'm a NBA credential reporter, so I got to go to the Orlando G League Showcase, and I got to see Ron Holland play in person, and they did a really good job comparing him here, Gerald Wallace, and I think that's perfect. There's nothing flashy about Ron Holland's offensive game, but he's gritty and he's grimy, okay? Like, I love this guy. He gets dirty, and he likes playing defense. Offensively, again, it's unorthodox, it's a little bit bruisey, and I think Gerald Wallace is a good comparison to what his offensive game will look like in the NBA. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts there. Now let's get into the next couple guys. So Jacoby Walter's a guy that we've seen just kind of steadily climb up the boards, but also consistently be mocked in the lottery. And I wasn't a huge guy, but a fan of his at the beginning of the season. But anytime you see a Baylor guy ranked in the lottery, you know they're probably going to stay in the lottery because Baylor does a good job of their players playing consistently well. And, he's a sharpshooter who's shooting 40% from 3, and the ability to be an adequate perimeter defender is going to carry him a long way. So let's go to the next group of guys. At 5, we have Buzelis, who, like, don't get me wrong, I think is fantastic. And for me, the biggest thing with him is going to be able to see if, like, people call him Franz Wagner. He's really been picking up his steam the last couple of games. And he's 19 years old. A lot of people, again, are calling him Franz Wagner, and I think that's a decent comparison. But, it's all about, will his game grow? At 6, we got Stephen Castle, who, he suffered a knee injury in November, but 6'6", he's got the size, and that, being a guy kind of like Aaron Aflalo could be someone that I think he could, turn into. Now at 7, we got Justin Edwards, who was at one point projected to go number 1 overall. He's 20 years old. He's a swingman who's shooting 26%, below 26% from 3. And he's a guy whose appeals as a defender. I think a lot of people say that, he's like, I don't know. Some people are comparing him to Rodney Hood. Then we got Mr. Zachariah. I love Zachariah, and I think he's a top 10 guy. Some people call him the French version of Mateus Buzelis. I think he's a guy that, when you look at him, 6'8", he kind of is I think a little floor, Nick Batum ceiling, maybe like Chris Middleton, I think. Now we go Tyrese Proctor. He's kind of like the poor man's Tyrese Halliburton, some would say, the Australian. The 3-point shot is at 33%. And now at 10, the best college player in my opinion, Cody Williams, J-Dub's younger brother. He's an absolute dog, 6'8", so much fun to watch. We got over here Donovan Clingan, who's basically Jakob Poeltl in 2023 or 2024. Then Ethan Almanza, who was like one of the greatest international players of all time in terms of like what he's able to do. Some people are big on him, some people aren't. I think he's a good, guy to take a shot on, because he could be kind of like an Al Horford, Dwight Powell mix. Now we got next up we got Nikola Topic. They're calling him the White Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They have him at 13 right here, dude. He's got to go top 2. Like, I think he's one of the best player. Naz Reid is being compared to Kyle Filipowski, the white Naz Reid, who's 7 foot tall. We're going to run through these pretty quickly. Dajuan Wagner's son, DJ Wagner. He's a solid guard who I'm a fan of, but he kind of has that Cole Anthony buzz coming out of college. No offense to him, and so I kind of see him a borderline lottery guy. Bobby Klintman, I love this guy. They're comparing his stiffness to Bobby Portis. I think he's more along the lines of maybe like a Rui Hachimura. Then Trey Alexander, I think, kind of reminds me of maybe a very not as good defender version of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now, Ade Mara is an old school 7'3" big. He's going to be a guy who's going to have success. Ryan Dunn, he's like probably the best defender in this draft class. He's at 19. Tyler Smith kind of reminds me of John Collins, who could also maybe play some small forward. He's kind of like this interesting guy. So I like him. He was someone that surprised me at the NBA's G League Showcase. Tijane Saloon, he's a guy who's been flying up the boards. I don't have a great comparison for him, but he's got a great body, 6'9", and he can play. He's a combo forward who's just got size. Aaron Bradshaw's getting that Derek Lively buzz, just flying up the boards, and he can block shots and hit 3-point shots. Khalil Ware is a guy that people really like, and he's now at Indiana. People are saying he's kind of got that Christian Wood. Adam Bona's just, a shot blocking, massive athletic freak who's played overseas, and now over here, he's going to have a chance to be in the NBA. Robert Dillian, just a really good combo guard who can play the 1 or the 2, and he just kind of has, modern day AI vibes. Yves Messi, just Baylor's big, who's just offensively being like Clint Capella, Mitchell Robinson. Kellen McCullough has that. Some people are saying he's the Jaime Jaquez of this draft class. He went from being an 11-point scorer to a 20-point scorer. Shout out my alma mater, KU. Jared McCain, just an insane 3-point shooter at 6'3". Then you got yourselves Osu, who's just an insane rebounding guy who also in that freaking Clint Capella vibe with some Draymond Green in him. Carlton Carrington's just like one of the players who's having a breakout season, and he's just 6'5", really good rebounder and got some great size. Melvin Ajinka is Alexis Ajinka's nephew, and he's kind of similar player to Tijun. He's left-handed, he's got a good motor. You got Kylan Boswell, who's good, point guard, who's a great 3-point shooter. Trevin Brazil, who's we need bigs in the NBA today at 33. Let's just continue going through here. Baba Miller's a shooter. He's got size. This is Oscar De Silvia's brother. Tristan De Silvia is a good power forward today's NBA. Riley Kugel is a good offensive player. You got yourself Wooga Poplar, who I think could fly up the boards at 37. He's a guy who's a 3-and-D guy with athleticism. Dalton Netch is a guy who's, 6'6", senior, just a really good 3-point shooter, and he just transferred from Northern Colorado. Alex Caraban is a guy who I think he stays, but, he's that 6'8", kind of like a Maxi Kleba. Then you got Trenton Flowers, who's playing over in Australia. He's a guy who can do a little bit of everything. He's got good size at 6'8". Berkey I think he stays another year at UCLA. He'll make more money. He's got a good motor, the Turkish forward. Terrence Shannon, what's going on with him and his trial. Then you got Dylan Jones, Kobe Johnson, Reed Shepard. Dude, this guy at one point was super high up, Iviska, but I think he needs a little bit more time. He's 7'2", and he was averaging 11 points in FIBA. Judah Mintz, I say, stays another year. Garway Duel, I think he was an interesting guy. He was a 4-star prospect who's climbed up the boards, but he stays. Same thing with Hunter Salas. Mackenzie Magapo, he's not had the best year. AJ Johnson, he's been all right. I think he stays. And in the draft, and he comes over and gets in the second round as a potential guy. Dylan Mitchell's got great athleticism. Someone's going to pick him up. Caleb Foster, similar thing, good athleticism, and he might stay another year because Proctor and McCain, I'm probably going to leave. Juan Nunez is a great passer, and he's been awesome. But, like, again, he's more of a backup. Reese Beekman, I love this guy. He's a defensive dog, and he can do a little bit of everything. Marco Jackson, shout out my alma mater, and he entered the season with some hype. He's a good on-ball defender. Zach Edey, I mean, some people are saying he could be a first-round pick. I don't think so. Then you got yourself over here, Tyler Kolek, another guy that I don't know too much, but people like him as a backup point guard. Alex Tooney, who's overseas in Australia, was supposed to go to Gonzaga. And then Terry Dolan, who's from NBA Africa on the G League Ignite. Let me hear your thoughts down below.